So it's another banner to the rafters for the Warriors, who win this one 103-90. After starting slow, they rattled off a record 21-0 run spanning from the first quarter to the second that truly took a commanding lead in this game. Boston did not go away, cutting that lead to as few as single digits here in the fourth quarter. But in the end, team defense and Steph Curry getting the job done as Curry goes for 34 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. His running mate, Andrew Wiggins, again showing up to the tune of 18 points. Draymond Green played his best game of this series. And in the end, it's the Dubs putting another ring on the finger as they get it done in 6 games over the Boston Celtics. Hats, t-shirts, and champagne, something they know well in the Bay. All right, let's break it all down with CBS Sports NBA insider Bill Reiter. Bill, so much to get to here, from legacy to player impact performances, but let's start right on the surface here in Game 6. Wild start to this one with the Celtics getting out to a commanding lead. The Warriors coming right back with a run of their own. Ebbs and flows in this game. How do you make sense of it all?
Draymond Green was finally spectacular. Jason Tatum continued to be disastrous. That Warriors defense was what it had been in the regular season, which is exceptional. And Steph Curry, what do you want to say? Steph Curry was Steph Curry. He was incredible. You know that there's going to be tension. There's going to be stress when there's a championship on the line. You could feel some moments, Joe. We were talking about this watching the game where it felt like in that fourth quarter, maybe the Celtics are going to push. Things are getting tight. Every one of those moments, Steph Curry's presence, his buckets, his ability to get to the rim or hit some big threes or distribute to his teammates was a reminder why he's the most important player outside of maybe LeBron James of his generation. Not just what he does as an individual, but what he does for his teammates in this championship. And you said it bookended and bookending that Kevin Durant era. What a remarkable continuation of Steph's story and the Warriors story. It's incredible.
We will continue to laud the exploits of Steph Curry throughout the night, but I do want to talk about Draymond Green because he truly came to play in a way we had not seen yet in this series. Sort of getting dragged early on, was not playing well to his own admission, but Button has had on a triple-double in this one. It was really Draymond distilled with 10 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, and a closeout performance. Even knocked down a couple triples. What he's meant to this franchise and what he meant in this moment. How impressed were you by Draymond here in Game 6? Incredible.
Now that Steve Kerr needs my advice on how to go about motivating Draymond Green, but you might want to get Draymond's mother's social media account as part of the Warriors process, because as soon as Mama called out her son, he went to another level. So this is the thing. We talked about this before the game. First of all, that Draymond could be, and I thought would be if the Warriors won this game going away, a huge X factor offensively. That obviously happened. But it's also the experience quotient that the Celtics don't have and didn't have until this series came to an end. Maybe the heartbreak will teach them. Draymond, like his teammates, has been through these processes before. They've had some heartache. They have 2016. They've got some championships. And for me, Joe, what you saw from Draymond Green was the effort that you have to have in the face of the fear that you're going to screw up, which obviously they didn't do, and the ability to just understand Draymond Green, hit some of those shots, take some of those shots, do it in a fearless way, be in rhythm with your jumper. Not that he's an offensive mastermind, but his ability, I think, to look back at some of the moments in the past in the finals that they've lost as well as that they've won, and to just raise his level and his intensity and his defense and everything that followed. There's a lot of reasons the Warriors are champions, but on this game, on this night, this victory, Draymond's a huge part of it.
Seemed like he made every defensive decision he didn't make in this game. Doubling on spin moves, coming up big, traps. He was fantastic. You mentioned the name Steve Kerr. Now 9 titles for Kerr. 9 rings in that ring box. That's a whole lot of jewelry. 4 as a head coach, 5 as a player, the 3 with the Bulls, the 2 with San Antonio, and now 4 here with Golden State. He's been a part of some of the greatest dynasties that this game has ever seen. I want to get to the legacy here in a moment, but specifically in Game 6, what did you make of the way that he coached this team? Because they were out in front by big margins at certain times, and he had to make some run-stopping timeouts. Sort of a coaching masterclass by Kerr once again.
Yeah, he stuck to his guns in a certain respect. He put Steph on the bench in the times where Steph's going to rest, but a little bit less time for Steph to be able to cool down a little bit. He stuck with guys that I think people like me, some reporters out there, Jordan Poole in particular, we haven't loved, but it certainly worked. I think it's twofold. You're right. Steve Kerr was able in this game to know when to pull the trigger on different guys coming in, to be able, you could tell just talking to his team, when the Celtics made that huge run at the start of the game, to really take control of the game, to just say we've been here before. But I also think everything we saw is a byproduct of the culture that Steve Kerr has created. Andrew Wiggins has been and a bust, not under Steve Kerr and the organization, the culture he's built. Jordan Poole, who didn't have the best finals on earth, was in the G League last year. Draymond Green's a guy that people were talking about benching a game ago, a couple days ago.
I asked the question.
You did, and it's a good question. It was a legitimate question, and I pondered it. Steve Kerr never did. He did. Remember, he sat in the last game because these things add up. He sat Draymond Green for a little bit of the fourth quarter. I think that's part of Draymond getting fired up, and you saw the continuation of his effort and his energy in this game. So yeah, Steve Kerr was phenomenal, I think, at every turn in this game, but also this victory, this championship, and this win in particular in Boston, a culmination of all the things that Kerr does in terms of culture and understanding his guys and how to build their confidence in the long term.
History will likely remember this as one of the greatest 8-year stretches, and we are not done with Warriors basketball, but we can't forget where they were not too long ago. A 15-win season 2 seasons ago. I believe it was sub 40 last season. And then to get back to this point, I mean, you're down by 50 at one point against the Grizzlies about a month ago. So on, let's say, the micro and macro level, are you at all surprised that we're sitting here having this conversation?
I'm not. And the little bit of me that's surprised is also mad at myself for having doubted Steph Curry. And I always railed about the fact I don't think Steph gets the respect he deserves in historical sets. It's coming. It always arrives. It just comes too late. I know, when I was a young dude, that Jordan was going to be Jordan when he came back from retirement. I've always been aware not to write off LeBron James. And the fact that some of us, myself included for a bit, slept on Steph Curry, forgot what he was about, didn't understand that when Clay got back to whatever he's at, 70, 80% after almost, 2.5 years away, even though Draymond was older, even though the collection of guys that were a part of this team and Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole weren't exactly striking fear into the heart of opponents, if Steph's a part of the mix, and we saw this when he leaves the floor, when he's on the floor, when he's a part of this team, they are another level. Not surprised, other than the fact that so many of us, myself included, kind of forgot when they were in the wilderness for a little bit.
I did short Draymond Green a couple points and a couple rebounds. We know that he's going to be watching this. At some point, Draymond, it's an apology on my behalf, but all 6 games in this series decided by double digits. It's the first time that it's ever happened in NBA Finals history. So history being made in more ways than one here, Bill. I do want to talk a little bit about Curry, and you touched on it already a bit. Built not bought is sort of the phrase that leads this Warriors team into this bookend win here. How important was it for this franchise, for Steph, for Steve Kerr, for the core of this team to win one beyond Kevin Durant? And this night is not about Kevin Durant, but the way that history is going to remember this dynasty, I feel like changed here on this given night.
Built not bought is so good, by the way. So I think there's a couple things that are real and that will take folks a little while to get their arms around. And they're connected. One, Steph Curry is I think he's a top 5 player in the history of the game. If you want to go top 7 or top 10, that's fine.
Clip it.
And I think the reason that's real and the reason that's true, and there's all this supporting evidence that makes it a fact, but now that he's won another one post Kevin Durant, post the Klay Thompson injury, with a different group of guys, it is an absolute rock solid reality. It's evidence. So we saw tonight, his emotion in knowing it, that Steph Curry never needed Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant always needed Steph Curry. That's not a shot at Durant. Durant's an amazing player, but ask Jason Tatum. There are a lot of remarkably talented players at Tatum's level and much higher at the KD level who do great things, who are amazing players. In Durant's place, top 15 player in the history of the sport, who can't get to the top of the mountain without someone else at that level or above it. Not Steph Curry. The fact that he got this and that he did this, I think he knows and understands that it proves to those people paying attention what a lot of us already thought, is that Steph Curry is historically great, that because of the way that he's built, he's sleight of frame compared to other NBA players, because the three-point shot, even though he created this reality, is still sort of new to old school guys, because he doesn't do the remarkable, overwhelming athletic things that KD and LeBron and Jordan and guys like that did. He's always going to be a little bit behind in the credit catching up to him, but I think you saw in his reaction, his emotion, his tears, he understands, Steph Curry, this is the moment that the world will look back and say, okay, the level of greatness he had exceeds almost every player in the history of the sport, and it certainly exceeds that of Kevin Durant.
Bill Reiter providing some bulletin board material here on CBS Sports HQ. So why stop now? Steph, Clay, Dre, and Iggy all now with 4 rings, the only active players other than LeBron James to have 4 rings. When you frame it that way, is there a little bit to hang your hat on if you're part of this core?
Yeah, I think there is, and not to make it all about Steph, but I like LeBron James. I've covered LeBron James. I know LeBron. I know the people around LeBron. They were sensitive years ago to the idea that Steph and LeBron should be in the same conversation. I used to think it was a lack of understanding about how great Steph was. I now suspect maybe the folks around LeBron James knew this day might be coming because Steph has as many rings as LeBron James. And you said it, those guys that are part of this core have created one of the most remarkable dynasties that we've seen in the NBA. The Spurs, and I'm taking nothing away from them, sort of like the Patriots in the NFL, had to spread that out. There's obviously the Kobe three-peat with Shaq, and there's the things that LeBron James did with Miami, 4 finals in a row, with the Heat, more obvious with Cleveland, and the 2 championships in the middle there. But to win 4 out of 8, and to have time where you had injuries that took you away from any kind of competitiveness, the 15-win season being an example, and to have Kevin Durant as a cheat code that I think maybe obscured, as you said, the remarkable way in which they built this internally, and the fact that it's still going. In fact, that the odds are out. They are the betting favorites for next year as of 5 minutes before we came on and started talking. The reality is that they're continuing what they've built. It's already one of the great dynasties that we've seen in the NBA's modern times, let's say Bird and Magic and beyond, and it's still going.
The 5th team in NBA history to win 4+ NBA titles in an 8-year span. So joining some rarefied air with this championship as well. Let's offer some thoughts here on the Celtics, putting the final chapter, the period on the season that was. They were 25-25 at a certain point, but you get to the finals, you take that 2-1 lead, and expectations surely change. What did you make of this group, this young core? Is this a type of team that feels this experience, processes this pain, and moves forward and maybe gets back here with that in their pocket?
That is going to be the question that defines whether the Celtics team that we just saw are a historical footnote on the Warriors' rise to the level of greatness we discussed, or whether it's a building block for their own success. Isaiah Thomas, the Hall of Famer, told me the other day that some all-time greats, and great players, and Tatum's not even that yet, great players just can't handle the moment. But Isaiah Thomas will be the first to tell you, as will other champions and multi-time champions, sometimes you got to go through the losses and the heartache and lose sleep over what it feels like to be that close to victory, to glory, to that ring, to that championship you've coveted your whole life in order to become the player in those moments you want to be. The reality is we won't know until next year. Now, I'll say this. You don't want to sleep on a young person like Jason Tatum and the talent of Jason Tatum. And you don't want, I shouldn't write off what he can or can't learn from this experience. But the reality is he was atrocious. And he looked broken in this game in the way that, at a much less talented level, James Harden has looked at times, or maybe equally talented. The way that Ben Simmons has looked, even though it's easier to point to the dunk. Tatum passed up on shots. He looked tentative. He didn't play well. He wasn't aggressive. He turned the ball over. And so those moments take you one of 2 directions if you want to be a champion. One is that it gets in your head. And this is not me speculating. I've talked to guys who've been through this on both sides of it. And you start to believe you can't do it. And the other, Joe, as you said, is you process it and you internalize it and you come back stronger for it. Because on the whole, if you have a superstar player on this Celtics team, and they didn't because of the way Jason Tatum played, they're probably NBA champions this year. They're very close because they drove this Warriors team to 6. They play exceptional defense. They're incredibly deep. At least their 8-man rotation is exquisite in defense at 1 through 8, all of those guys. I think Jaylen Brown is more than good enough to be a number 2 on a championship team. What they were missing in this series in particular was a superstar, which is a problem when you have a superstar on the team and he couldn't play like it.
Yeah, a lot of productive pieces, but Tatum very passive here in Game 6 and in the 4th quarter of both Game 4 and Game 5. It is officially official. You can laminate that resume. Steph Curry, now an NBA Finals MVP, adding it to the already Hall of Fame career. There was no doubt as we take a look at a little bit of the sizzle reel here. He does it with 34, 7, and 7 to close things out in Game 6. He's the guy you look at when you're looking somewhere, and we said it all series long, Bill. Sometimes it's just the team with the best player is going to win the series. Steph Curry backed up that here in this series against the Celtics. No panic at any point. What does this do for Steph Curry's resume, his legacy, the way we're going to look at him? Far from finished, the greatest shooter of all time already, and now an NBA MVP in the finals.
I'll give you a LeBron James comparison. There was a time when certain sports writers and people, maybe myself, a little embarrassed by it, wrote LeBron off or his legacy off because he lost some random NBA championship when he was a young guy. And what we didn't understand, what I didn't understand, what the world sometimes doesn't understand because it's all about what just happened, is that winning solves everything, including rewriting either your history or the way people perceived it. The fact that Steph Curry is now a Finals MVP, and deservedly so, dominant over the course of this series, won by himself Game 4 in that fourth quarter, that means that every argument, every conversation, every talk about, well, KD got those two, it's over. It's erased. It doesn't matter. One Finals MVP, and this one in particular, post-Durant, everything we've talked about, coming on off of that Klay Thompson injury, sort of resurrecting this Warriors greatness with a core group of guys but a different group of supporting cast. That is going to make everything about Stephen Curry that has come before it, that has preceded this moment, feel as electric and as glorious and historical as it probably should have without that resume line until this evening.
Bill, there's so many different ways to frame this. The history that was made on Thursday night in Game 6. The Warriors adding their 7th title to the rafters, which breaks a tie with the Bulls for 3rd most all time. This core adding a 4th to an already full hand. I want to offer you the floor for a final thought here on the Warriors. The season that was, the performance here in the finals, and what it took to get to this moment.
I mean, we are talking about an organization, a team that has built a championship team the right way and has done it with a player in Steph Curry who's done maybe the rarest thing in sports, and that is absolute loyalty to the organization that drafted him. LeBron James hasn't done that. That's his choice. Kevin Durant's bounced around. That's his choice. Guys like Luka, who doesn't have a championship, and Giannis are too young yet to know if they're going to stick around. Kobe Bryant was the last really true great at this level, all-time great player to do what Steph Curry has done, and they've done it without, I know Kevin Durant's an exception to this, but without a major free agency pull in 2 of those championships. And what it tells us, and it reminds us, as great as Durant was, and as much as looking back it guaranteed the excellence that was already part of a 73-win team, Steph Curry has always been the straw that stirred the drink. He was always the required excellence and greatness. And Kevin Durant needed Steph Curry in a way that Steph Curry has proven in this championship, in this Finals MVP. He hasn't really needed anybody except the players that happen to be around him, because his greatness individually is beyond doubt, but so is his ability to infuse his guys with the same level of greatness and together to do what they just did against the Boston Celtics.
Big game. Bill Reiter putting words to history. Bill, we appreciate you as always. Go enjoy your Father's Day, all right?
I will.
All right, let's take a look at this series, at this moment, and where they stand now. They passed my Bulls. It's fine. Warriors now 7 titles in franchise history, 4 from this core over the last 8 seasons, and some work to be done to catch number 2, but the Celtics and Lakers in turn stay deadlocked.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.